Hello everybody, this is Carl Watson again coming at you guys with another deck profile. Today I'm doing incantation rituals. Essentially, I'm bringing you guys a deck profile on my take of incantation rituals. Without further ado, let's get right into it. The first monster that we run is 3 Pencil Plume. Pencil Plume is essentially the recursion for your ritual monsters from the graveyard. Pencil Plume takes a monster out of the grave that is already there. If you have it in your hand, you can basically reveal a ritual monster and special summon it and then search out another incantation card. So basically it works as a utility card to let us get our other incantations. Of course, they search the ritual monsters as well as ritual spells. This one, we want to run 3 of it because we want to see it in our hand so that we can search out the other incantation cards. The main ones you want to search out are Talismandra as well as Candle, depending on what the situation calls for. You may also, if the game becomes longer, you may also end up using Pencil Plume to recur resources and reuse your ritual monster. We run a lot of utility ritual monsters in the deck, so sometimes Pencil Plume actually is needed. Moving right along, the second monster that we run in the deck is Talismandra. We run him at 3 because we want to be able to get into our resources. And so because we run a bunch of different ones, this is our searcher. He's like the rotor for the deck. He lets us search out our monsters. So we run 3 of the Talismandra so that we're able to search out monsters throughout the course of the game. And so as long as we have him, we're able to get to whatever utility that we need at the time. And so he also lets you special summon from the hand. We really don't ever want to special summon him from the hand, but we do want to make sure that we have him in the deck so that we can do it. So we run him at 3 in case we need to search him. If we need to get a spell card, we can always play him from hand if need be, but and get out the Candle, but we do run him at 3. We run 2 of the Impcantation Candle. The reason we run them at 2, through playtesting, I noticed that a lot of times I would already have the spell card and I didn't really need to recur it. He's dead pretty much after you have the spell card. So what I would do with him is I cut him down to 2, and I just said, okay, well, I still needed to be there in case I don't start with the spell card. And so right now I'm running him at 2. For our last incantation card, we run 2 copies of Incantation Bookstone. He could possibly be another 3. He could possibly go up to 3. I'm still debating about it. He's another card that you kind of want to start with in your hand, because by starting with him in your hand, it allows you to search out the Talismandra and the Kendall. And so I've really been thinking about bumping him up to 3. You don't want to see him, you don't want to keep him in the deck. You want to start with him if you're going to start with it. And so you want to be able to pitch him, by revealing and then special summoning him to get either, like I said, Talismandra or Kendall out of the deck. His other effect, of course, allows you to recur spells from the grave. It's kind of a moot point because the ritual spell does recur itself, and because it recurs itself, a lot of times you really just don't need his effect because the ritual spell already does it for you. The next monster that we run, other than the incantation monsters, we run 2 Vanities Rulers. Because we can easily put 2 monsters on the field without normal summoning, we run these 2, and basically they allow us to steal games. You're still allowed to special summon, while your opponent can't special summon any monsters out with Vanities Ruler. And so we run this at 2. If you start with it and you go in first, you just steal games with Vanity's Ruler. Your opponent's not prepared, they don't run any destruction, then you got it. Next up, we run 3 Zaborg the Mega Monarch. Zaborg is another starter card. If you're going first with Zaborg, you're able to take up to 8 cards out of your opponent's extra deck before they even get a chance to start playing. They basically start with all of the best cards in their deck, taken out of the game. They're no longer in the extra deck, they're banished. And so Zaborg a lot of times allows us to steal games. It also interacts with our extra deck, meaning that we get to send monsters from our extra deck to graveyard and allow a lot of effects to pop off. So even if it's not turn 1, it still has some good utility for us. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But we do run this card at 3 because it is a win condition essentially for the deck. This is another going first win condition as well as mid-game win condition. So we'll explain that a little bit more in detail as we go through the deck profile. Next up, we run 2 copies of Eater of Millions. We do have some cards. I think we have 6 cards that matter in our extra deck. All the rest of the cards in the extra deck don't matter. And so being able to play this, it just helps us to sometimes out some problematic monsters. It comes up, and when it does come up, usually I'm happy to see the card. And it just helps me to overcome things that would otherwise or could otherwise be problematic. And I run it at 2. For the last regular effect monster, we won 1 copy of Majesty's Fiend. Now, Majesty's Fiend turns off pretty much all monsters effects that activate. To be able to do this, you special out an incantation, tribute over it, Majesty's Fiend, and then your opponent has to deal with it. It's a problem for them to get off the board, and it can also help take games. For our ritual monster lineup, we run 3 copies of Chalice Slime. Chalice Slime is your startup card. It helps you to get into whatever incantation monster you need by just discarding a card. You discard one, and then you bring out any of the incantation monsters, get their effect. If you need to recur something from the grave, you can bring out Pencil Plume, or Bookstone. And if you need to get your deck jump started, you can bring out Talismandra or Kandal. And so this is one of the cards that we use. Chalice Slime can also pitch itself, so it can still use its effect by pitching itself. So this is also a really great card. You can also ritual summon Chalice Slime, and it has an effect that allows you to pop a card on the field. We won 1 copy of the Suratar. This card basically allows us to recur our resources from grave, and so it has a quick effect on it that says we can reveal it, bring up to 10 levels of incantation monsters back from the graveyard. So basically we can bring back a Talismandra as well as a Kandal by revealing it, and then if we need to tribute right off the bat, right? Say we have those engraved, we can tribute for our Zaborg, we can tribute for our Vanity's Ruler, we can also tribute for our Majesty's Fiend, and then if we want to ritual summon with it, it allows us to recur our resources out of the graveyard. So we run this at 1 just for the quick effect on the card. I believe that it does have a cost. You have to discard a card in order to use it, but you reveal this card, use the quick effect, discard the card, and then you bring back up to, like I said, the total of 10 stars from the graveyard and incantation monsters, and then use them for tributes or ritual summons. And so that's why we use this, to be able to recur those resources in case of the game going longer than a couple of turns. We run 1 Amorphactor Pain. Basically what he does is he makes your opponent skips their main phase 1, and so they have to go directly into battle. Once you play him, it does that, and if they don't have any monsters on the board, they skip their first turn essentially and go directly to main phase 2, meaning that they don't have any monsters to attack you with the first turn. And they can make their board in their second phase, but it stops effects from fusion monsters, synchro monsters, and XYZ monsters while they're on the field. So you get to stop a lot of other cards as well by just making this card. Not only do they miss their main phase 1, they also lose the effects from fusions, synchros, and XYZ monsters. So it's not a bad utility card. We run one copy of Chaos Max. The reason we run the one copy of Chaos Max because a lot of decks have a problem outing Chaos Max. When you put him out there, if they don't have a kaiju, you essentially keep smacking them for 4,000 every turn, and they have to deal with it. If they can't deal with it, you know, you win. And so a 4,000 beat stick that's unaffected by almost everything, it's pretty good. So we run one Chaos Max. We run one copy of Shino Baron Peacock. Shino Baron Peacock allows us to bounce everything, and it also gives us 2 tokens, and so it sets us up for the next turn to be able to tribute or ritual summon. Not to mention that it's a 3,000 beater, and so we run one copy of this because it allows us to bounce a lot of the cards that our opponent is controlling. It allows us to bounce up to 3 cards, and it helps us to get in there and put in damage against our opponent. Next up, we run one copy of Odd Eyes Gravity Dragon. Gravity Dragon helps us to clear off back row. It's another one of our utility cards. Because we're running the Impcantation engine, we're able to run all of these utility cards. And so Odd Eyes gets past the back row. We can search it out with our Talismandra and basically clear up any back row that we might think that is going to get in the way. You use this, get rid of it. If they activate any cards after this card is on the board, they pay 500 per card that they activate until they can clear it up. Next up, we run one Demise King of Armageddon. You pay 2,000 life points, blow up the board. It's Dark Hole and Monster card form. And so that helps us also to get there until where we can basically go for game. Next up, we run one Cyber Angel Vrash. The reason we run Cyber Angel Vrash is because Vrash can become a 1-card OTK. Once you have 10 stars on the board, you can ritual summon this card using the Incantation ritual card. Basically bring out Vrash, destroy as many monsters on the field as possible, and your opponent will take 1,000 for each one that's destroyed. And then Vrash can attack twice. It's a 3,000 attack body, and you know, because you can destroy, if you destroy up to 2 monsters, if they have at least 2 monsters on the field that can be destroyed, you pop those 2 monsters and then attack for 6,000, that's game. And so because this card can become a 1-card OTK, we run Cyber Angel. We run this card because it's good. And then last but not least, for the ritual monsters, we run one copy of Necros Unicorn. Being able to make a more factor pain turn 1 as well as Unicorn is a pretty strong opening board. And so a lot of times those are your go first options. And they just help you to really stun your opponent and not let them play if you don't have the Vanity's Ruler or the Zaborg the Mega Monarch. And so we run one copy of Necros of Unicorn. For our spells, the first spell that we run is 3 copies of Incantation Inconception. This is the spell card that we use to ritual summon all of the utility monsters, the utility ritual monsters. And basically what you do is you ritual summon them, and then you're able to take away one incantation monster from either your hand or from the field. And once you do that, you're able to bring this card back to your hand to recur it by its own effect. And when you do that, you're able to special summon from the deck an incantation monster to continue making plays with. So, and then you're able to get that incantation monster's effect, assuming you haven't already used it. And so all of those things help us to be able to continue to bring out and have plays turn after turn. So, an amazing ritual spell card for the deck. We run 2 copies of Incantation Thanatosis. Basically what this card does is it allows us to be able to reveal an incantation monster from the hand, and special summon 2 monsters with that name from the deck. It basically just helps us to tutor out more monsters. And it has another effect that says once per turn, if a ritual monster is special summoned to your field, except in the damage step, you can basically pop a card on the field. And so by this card letting us be able to pop as well as tutor out monsters, I run it at 2. It's a great field spell for the deck, and it just helps us to keep progressing our game state. We run 3 copies of Preparation of Rites. Sometimes you start without having a way to get out your incantation monsters. This card gets you there. You search out the Chalice Slime. Chalice Slime allows you to get whatever utility incantation monster that you need. And once you get the incantation monster, you go off from there. You ritual summon out, or you tribute summon over your incantation monsters. We run 2 copies of Twin Twister in the deck to clear up back row, so that we're able to ritual summon the way that we want to be able to ritual summon. We main deck the 2 copies, and then after we finish main decking the 2 copies of Twin Twister, we main deck 1 copy of Call by the Grave, and we also main deck 1 copy of Dark Hole. The reason we main deck Dark Hole is because I want to be able to bait out any kind of negates that my opponent might have. Essentially, with their monsters, they have to stop this card. If they have a negator on the board, they have to stop this. If they don't have a negator on the board, then they're going to lose all their monsters. And we run this 1 copy. I know a lot of people will say, well, why even run it at all if I'm going to run it at 1? It comes up sometimes, and usually when it comes up, whether it's against like a graveyard deck or against a hand trap, it's usually not dead. I usually, whenever I see this card, it's usually always live because I'm running it at 1. So that's my main board. The only cards that matter, we don't have a lot of cards that matter in the extra deck for this deck, but there are a few cards that do matter. There are 6 of them, to be precise. The only 6 cards that matter in your extra deck are 3 copies of Herald of the Arclight. Basically, for our Zaborg, the Mega Monarch, you want to be able to pitch this card, and it lets you search out any 3 of your ritual monsters from the deck. When Zaborg effect goes off, you send these 3 as one of your targets from the deck. Also, we run 3 copies of Elder Entity Nestis. Nestis allows us to basically pop 3 cards that our opponent controls. And so when Zaborg's effect goes off, even if it's past the beginning of the game, you still have the utility in basically being able to search 3 cards, any 3 ritual monsters, as well as being able to pop any 3 cards on your opponent's board. being able to do that can basically just single-handedly win you the game. And not to mention that you get to take out 8 monsters from your opponent's extra deck following Zaborg's effect. So, Zaborg is just a 1 card win condition. Like 3 searches plus 3 pops, and then removing, basically sending to grave 8 monsters out of your opponent's extra deck is pretty good. As far as the rest of the extra deck goes, it's up to personal preference. I don't think that it really matters. As far as the rest of the extra deck, you can have any other 9 cards, I guess, in the deck. It's not going to make a difference on it. The other 9 cards are essentially there for Eater of Millions targets. You can banish the cards, and then Eater of Millions comes out. You probably usually only see 1 Eater Millions. I mean, sometimes it can come up at 2. And so, typically speaking, even if it comes up at 2, you still have targets left to banish for Zaborg. So, that's my deck profile, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Like, subscribe. The channel is still new. We're working to better it for you guys, and let us know what we can do better down there in the comment section, guys. Thanks. Have a great one. Peace.